Let's talk about a man who just seems to operate on a completely different scale. You know the name. It's tied to controversy, sure, but also to a future that feels like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. But this story isn't just about cool cars and rockets. It's about the path to a number that is almost impossible to imagine. $1 trillion. Seriously, just look at all those zeros. Try to wrap your head around that number. It's not just a fantasy anymore. It's the potential value of a massive pay package that Tesla shareholders just gave the green light to. It's a deal that could make Elon Musk the world's very first trillionaire. So the scene at that shareholder meeting, it was apparently electric. People said it felt less like a stuffy corporate meeting and more like a rock concert. The crowd just erupted when the vote was confirmed. But behind all that celebration, this insane number makes you ask a pretty basic question. To really get the story behind a potential $1 trillion, we have to rewind, and I mean way back. Not to Silicon Valley, but to a pretty lonely childhood in Pretoria, South Africa. All right, so let's start with Chapter 1, his formative years. And just so you know, this was not some storybook childhood. It was tough, it was unsupervised, but it was also where his brain just ignited. So after his parents split up, he made the choice to go live with his dad, a decision he would later call a huge mistake. But even in this difficult time, you can see that spark. Look at this. By 1984, he's just 12 years old, and he's not just playing video games, he's already coded and sold one for $500. You can see pretty early on that South Africa just wasn't going to be big enough for his ambitions. Musk himself says he was raised basically by books. I mean, the kid read not one, but two entire sets of encyclopedias. And with nobody really watching, he's out there building homemade rockets and explosives. But that freedom had a dark side. At school, he was the nerdy kid, the outsider, and he got bullied so badly that he was actually hospitalized once. You have to imagine that created this powerful drive to prove everyone wrong and, take control of his own world. This right here, this is his superpower. It's called first principles reasoning. So instead of just accepting that rockets are expensive because they've always been, he asks, okay, but what is a rocket actually made of? Aluminum, copper, what do those raw materials cost? This started super early. As a kid, he wasn't afraid of the dark because he figured out it was just an absence of photons. This way of thinking, it's the key to absolutely everything that comes next. So now let's see what happens when he takes that mindset and applies it to business. He gets to North America and dives straight into the dot-com boom. This is where he learns to play the game, and boy, does he learn to bet big. He starts with Zip2, an online city guide. He sells it and makes $22 million. Now, for most of us, that's it. Game over, you've won. But not Musk. He goes all in, rolling almost every dollar into his next thing, X.com. That company eventually becomes PayPal, but in a crazy bit of corporate drama, he gets kicked out as CEO while he's on a plane. But he was still the biggest shareholder, so when eBay came along and bought PayPal, he walked away with a cool $165 million. Again, most people would take that money, buy a private island, and just call it a day. But what Musk did next, well, let's just say a lot of people thought he was completely out of his mind. He was about to risk everything. Just look at the sheer audacity of this bet. He takes his entire PayPal fortune, every penny, and dumps it into 3 companies that pretty much every expert said were doomed. $100 million for a private rocket company, SpaceX, $70 million for a tiny electric car startup, Tesla, and $10 million for a solar company. He was all in, no safety net. And for a while there, it looked like the experts were right. It looked like a total catastrophe. He has said himself that 2008 was, without a single doubt, the worst year of his entire life. Everything he'd built was about to go up in smoke. I mean, everything that could possibly go wrong did, all at once. SpaceX's first 3 rockets literally blew up. Tesla was bleeding cash, weeks away from going belly up. The global economy was melting down, so no investors were writing checks. And on top of all that, his personal life was falling apart. He was going through a divorce and had to borrow money from friends just to live. And then, at the very last second, when all hope was basically lost, 2 miracles happened. On Christmas Eve, Tesla somehow managed to close an investment round that saved it from bankruptcy. Just a few days before that, SpaceX, on what was its final shot before running out of money, finally reached orbit. That success landed them a life-saving $1.6 billion contract from NASA. He stared into the abyss, and he didn't blink. So, after surviving 2008, Musk didn't just rebuild. He started to completely reshape entire industries. This is when people started calling him the real-life Iron Man. And this is what that first principles thinking looks like in the real world. By deciding to build rockets from scratch and making them reusable, SpaceX just crushed the cost of getting into space. They did what all the giants of the industry had said for decades was impossible. And it wasn't just space. With Tesla, he proved that electric cars could be cool, that they could be better and faster than gas-powered cars. The ripple effect was so huge that now every single major car company on Earth is scrambling to go electric. He almost single-handedly kick-started a global transition. And all of that brings us to today. This chart really puts it all in perspective. He's not just the richest person in the world. He has created a gap that puts him in a category all by himself. And it's wealth built not on software or online shopping, but on making really big, complicated things like rockets and cars. Which brings us full circle. With that $1 trillion pay package now on the table, the question isn't really about money anymore, is it? It's about his vision for what humanity does next. So, really, what does a person who's on the verge of becoming a trillionaire actually want to do? Well, it turns out the answer isn't about buying more stuff. It's about building a future that, honestly, sounds like it's been pulled from the pages of some wild science fiction novel. This is basically his to-do list for humanity. You've got poverty. He wants to solve it with an army of humanoid robots. Worried about AI taking over? He's trying to build a safe version. The human brain has its limits, right? Well, he's building Neuralink to hook us up to computers. And then there's the big one, the ultimate insurance policy for humanity, building a city on Mars. And this quote right here, this really gets to the core of what drives him. For him, this isn't just a business plan. It's about making sure that humanity, that consciousness, survives for the long haul. Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. That bullied kid who was raised by books is now arguably the single most powerful person shaping our future. So, is he leading all of us to a better place? Or are we just becoming characters in a world that one man is building? The answer to that is still being written.